Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the November 25th edition of the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. We're going to be joined shortly by Dylan Kramer. And of course, we are on our Turkey Day weekend recovery period. We'll all be eating turkey sandwiches now, probably for the next 3 or 4 days anyway. But I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving with friends, family, enjoyed yourself. And Monday, it's back to work, but it's not Monday yet. So let's have some fun on the Real Estate Radio podcast. So real quick, if you're watching on TikTok, you could watch us live as well on Facebook at Launch My Listing, at Launch My Listing. You could watch us live on YouTube at Larry Shackman. And also, if you're on LinkedIn, you can watch us at Larry Shackman as well. So we're glad you're all with us. And we got a lot to talk about. Black Friday just came and went, and we're headed straight into Cyber Monday. So we got a little bit to talk about there because all this ties into the real estate market and how this all transpires. And, you know, is the real estate market getting hot again? Is it heating up? Are consumers spending? Exactly what's going on. So with all of that said, before we move on, I just want to thank our sponsors. And first and foremost, I want to thank Trusted Agent USA. So trustedagentUSA.com. You can go to that website and you can click on any of the little action buttons there. So if you click on Sell My Home, you're just going to enter a little bit of information and our concierge service will get in touch with you. We're going to show you how to sell your home for as low as 1.5% commission. And if you're buying a home with us, you're going to get up to 0.5% back on the purchase price of the home that you're buying. So if you're buying a $400,000 home, you're going to get $2,000 back to use towards your closing costs and prepaids when you do your loan with Dylan Kramer at Benchmark Mortgage. So certainly want to thank Trusted Agent USA. I also I want to thank our other partners as well. So number one, Dylan Kramer, our mortgage partner at Benchmark Mortgage. Dylan Kramer is an awesome guy. He is the problem solver, the fixer, the mortgage guru. He is going to help you get over the finish line. And believe me, real estate transactions are not what they were back in the day. So they're a lot more complicated, and Dylan's going to help you get over that finish line. Also, I want to thank our other sponsor today, which is At Home Title Services. I am also a title agent. If you want to save 50% on your title insurance policy, just give me a call at 630-921-0611. Even if you're buying a $200,000 condo, the card rate on that for a title insurance policy is about $2,100. You're going to save about a little over $1,000 on that alone when you work with us. So want to thank everybody for helping us out today. Trusted Agent, trustedagentUSA.com. At Home Title Services, and Benchmark Mortgage. And now we are going to bring on our buddy, our friend, our partner in real estate, Dylan Kramer.
What's going on, Mr. Man? How are you?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic today. I'm just, rolling along, checking emails and podcasting and, handling a few leftovers. I'm going to make turkey stock today. So I got a carcass in my fridge in the garage, which is a first world problem, right?
Nice. Listen, I'll be over about 11:30.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Okay.
There'll be plenty.
How was your Thanksgiving, number one?
My Thanksgiving was fantastic. You know what? We had probably a dozen or so people over at the house, and a good time was had by all. How about you?
Awesome. Yeah, no, we went over to my stepdaughter's house right around the corner from us. and we had an awesome time. I mean, hanging out with the grandkids and getting food thrown at me. What else? What's Thanksgiving about if not that?
Well, you're exactly right.
Yeah. So we're glad to have you here. We got a lot to talk about.
Let's do it.
I'm curious about something. So we just had I'm curious and confused. So I'm going to need you and our special guest today, John Hoffman, Why Rent Real Estate, one of the preeminent REO brokers in Illinois. He's going to be on here today, and we're going to have story time with John Hoffman. He's going to tell us
Right.
some of his horror stories, maybe.
Are they horror stories or
I
are
don't
they somebody got a deal stories? I always wonder about these things.
The REO business is a weird business. It's like herding cats. It's not like retail real estate.
Right.
So it's a whole other business. I'm sure John has some fun stuff to talk about. I did, as you know, I did that for a long time,
Right.
and had a
That's how we
huge
met originally, frankly, for the people who are listening out there and just wondering kind of how we got together. I mean, it was that time in the business and we got introduced by a mutual friend.
Yeah. So the REO business, it's a whole different deal. So John will come on and have some fun stories for us when it comes to that. And so he'll be on probably in about another 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so. So Black Friday just passed, right?
Yep.
I've got a question for you.
Shoot.
When do you think Americans spend more money? Do we spend more money on Black Friday or do we spend more money on Cyber Monday? Which one?
I think it's Cyber Monday, isn't it? Because everybody's, if I'm not mistaken, the origin of that, sorry if I'm stepping on your story, but
No,
we
not
didn't
at
clear this
all.
ahead of time. But the origin of that is, remember when, we're older than the internet. And so, as the internet kind of came on the scene, everybody had dial-up internet at home, but it was very quick in most industries, yours and mine included, to adopt high-speed internet, which is pretty standard now. But people would basically wait till Monday to do their shopping because they had fast internet at the office when they did not at home.
Yeah. So you're probably right about that. I'm not exactly sure of the origins, but that sounds right. And you're spot on when you say we spend more money on Cyber Monday than we do on Black Friday. And take a wild guess. What are the experts predicting we are going to spend here in America on Cyber Monday?
Oh, I don't know, $10 billion. Like I
Not a
have
bad
I have
guess.
no frame of reference.
Not a bad guess at all. You're and in the whole scheme of things, you're pretty close. $13.7 billion is what we
This is
are.
why I'm the money guy, Larry.
Yeah, is what we are expected to pay this. What we are expected to spend this Monday, Cyber Monday, is $13.7 billion. Now we know some of that gets returned, and there's that whole circle of fun that happens when you shop. But we are going to spend 13.7 billion on Cyber Monday, and we're probably going to spend over 10 billion on, or have spent over 10 billion on Black Friday. So crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's an astronomical amount of money, and there's so many zeros. I can barely understand how to process that, like that size of pile of money.
Yeah, it's crazy. And where a lot of stuff is getting spent, as always, is on electronics, clothing, things like that. All great. It's funny because I'm looking down here at my notes. What the experts are saying is people are not spending less on gifts this year. And so we're going to go over a few facts because this is where I'm kind of confused. And as soon as John hops on, we're going to bring him on too, because I want him to add to this whole thing. Because I'm really curious about something. So, and we've talked about some of these things in the previous weeks, but I think it all ties together with what we just talked about in terms of the massive amounts of money that Americans spend Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and every other holiday for that matter, right?
For sure.
But I think this all ties together. So here's what I'm kind of confused about. Couple of stats. Home prices rose 3.4% last month. Okay. So on average, the median home sale price in the country, not just in Chicago Metro, which is what a lot of our stats typically talk about, but in the whole country is about a little under 392. Okay, that's where
Okay,
the
392.
median home price is. Okay, so and that means it went up about 3.4%. Now, the consumer inflation rate as of the end of October, year over year, is at 3.2%, which went down about 0.5% over the previous month, year over year. It was 3.7, the end of October, 3.2%. Okay, all good news so far, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so there's more good news. The wholesale inflation rate also went down, and we talked about this a little last week, went down 0.5% as well. So the consumer inflation rate and the wholesale inflation rate both went down about 0.5%. The consumer inflation rate is at about 3.2% right now, which is about which is about 1.2% higher than we'd like it to be. We'd like it to be around 2%. Am I right?
Exactly right. No, the Fed, specifically to that point, because I think it's important for everybody listening, the Fed is targeting a 2% inflation rate, and they have all sorts of things that they are comfortable with in the economy when we are at 2%. So it's absolutely their target to have a moderated level of inflation in the economy. And they want some inflation in the economy as part of their deal.
Okay, so why 2%? I'm curious about that.
You know, this is the economist in me, if you will, Larry. So there's two. There on one hand, 2% is the target because they feel like, look, I think a couple of things happen when there is inflation. So when you have a modest amount of inflation and 2% modest, inflation expectations get set. So nobody expects or thinks that prices are going to go up dramatically from here. So what happens is people and companies in make decisions about their personal finances, about their business finances, based on the idea that rates and inflation will be tied around 2%. What's happened the last couple of years is you've seen people are like, oh my God, inflation is X or 8 or 9 or whatever. So restaurants and are the easiest example, right? Because they got to go print new menus.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, where you can go to Chili's or Applebee's or any other chain style restaurant and get yourself a $12 hamburger.
Right.
Well, you know, a 10% increase in that is a $13.20 hamburger. But now all of them are $16.95. Why is that? Because they're just pre-printing menus and expect it to be even higher later. And so you can't touch a $15 hamburger in places like that. And other businesses that's a great example, but other businesses make that decision. So it gets embedded very quickly, the inflation expectations. So if they're effectively able to stay at 2%, then that sets the tone for the economy at 2%.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, they also are absolutely terrified of deflation. Deflation is horrible for the government and businesses although it is great for the consumers, right? But what happens in a deflationary environment is if prices are coming down over time, why would I buy my next house? Why would I go to Costco or Sam's Club and buy 30 rolls of toilet paper? Because I'm not saving any money. I'll go to the Jewel and
Well, it's
buy
after
one.
Thanksgiving. That would be
It'll be
one reason
right,
why.
exactly. And it'll be cheaper in a month by 2 cents, 5 cents. I don't need to stock up because it won't be more expensive later.
Right. Right.
And so but deflation in much the same way inflation can get run in, deflation can get run in, and that can end up being a grind which the economy can't recover from, because then eventually nobody wants to do anything because it'll just be cheaper later.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the worst case outcome. So on one hand, the Fed likes a set non-inflationary level of inflation, right? Modest level of inflation, if you will.
Right.
On the other hand, they're terrified of deflation. Those are the two reasons.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring John Hoffman on real quick. There he is, the man of the hour.
Hey, boys.
Hey, John, how are you?
How are you guys?
Good.
What's
Happy
going on?
Thanksgiving. Hope you guys had a great one.
You too, man. I got to tell you, Dylan, I was listening to what you were just saying there, and that's kind of what I've been following too lately, is how that they're trying to balance that. And to me, they're just running out of rabbits to pull out of their hat to keep it going.
The interesting thing about the Fed, and I don't want to get into an hour on the Fed, right? Like we can do that one day later.
There's an hour plus.
Everyone's eyes are going to glaze over.
But yeah, exactly.
Right.
But look, they only have one option, and that is raise or lower rates. That's the only tool the Fed has. And so it's hard in a big, giant economy with hundreds of thousands of industries and businesses to be able to use one tool. You know, the old cliche, if you're a carpenter and you got a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you made a good point about perception. So once we hit that 2% level, so we're at 3.2% right now, inflation, John, that's what we were talking about. It went down about 0.5% from last month, year over year, from 3.7 to 3.2. Home prices went up about 3.4%. Wholesale inflation went down about 0.5%. So all good news. We're at about, like I said, 3.2% consumer inflation. And in addition to that, the job market has still kind of cooled off, which isn't a bad thing when it comes to inflation necessarily. So it's kind of cooled off. And part of the reason is employers are holding on to employees longer now. They're not skipping around so much because the job market isn't so hot. So they're holding on to employees longer, which also kind of helps the whole inflation thing when we have not such a hot job market. So all this stuff is pretty good news, right? Not bad.
Oh, yeah.
You're asking me or asking John?
Anybody.
I still think
it's a conversation. We got to go.
Yeah, it's a podcast, guys. We're talking.
Hey, I think that I think a lot of that though is there's the worst is still out. There's so many layers to that inflation that they strip out certain things when they announce all the rates at this, but there's certain things that are stripped out of that. And then they'll add it later. And then the unemployment numbers, every time they post,
they always get adjusted.
Yeah, it's adjusted. They'll adjust the unemployment numbers from 3 months ago down. So it always looks better when you get it up front. And then it's in the small print. It's, oh, by the way, we adjusted down on last September. It's just there's a lot of misread stuff out there that kind of makes me crazy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think you have to kind of pay attention to everything, stay on top of it. But I think at the end of the day, we're getting some decent information. I mean, think about it, guys. A year ago, we were headed for 9% inflation, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look, I think, Larry, what you're really referencing is what we've talked about here a little bit this morning is this expectations issue, right? Like we were nervously in the midst of high inflation last year. And I would think that nobody currently who's paying attention, and certainly none of the three of us would argue that we're still experiencing dramatic inflation right now.
Yeah. No, exactly. It has
Yeah,
leveled
no.
off, and it's kind of stayed around that 3.2 to 3.8% consumer inflation rate. So it's still a little sticky because people want to see it come down, but they're not seeing a lot of food prices drop dramatically. So when they go to the grocery store, they're still, now I will say this year, and we talked about this last Wednesday, is a turkey dinner last year cost about $64 and some odd cents, and this year cost about $61 and
Man, if
some
I
odd
could have got
cents.
away with $64 to feed the people who came to my house, I would have been really happy.
Right.
Right. McDonald's, man, there's always a bailout, right?
There it is. There it is. But now here's my confusion with this whole thing. Okay, so after all those decent stats and all that, right?
Right?
Not bad. I agree with you, John. Things get adjusted. You got to stay on top of it. And the stat that you get sometimes gets adjusted, sometimes better, sometimes worse. But right now, we've got some good economic indicators. Here's the thing. So in November, as of November, consumer sentiment went up a little bit, right? A little bit more than they thought it would. Consumers were a little bit more positive about things as of November. But here's the thing, it still went down for the fourth month in a row. So here's my question to you two, because I'm confused and I can't take any more medication. Here's the thing. Why are consumers feeling this way when I'm going to the gas pump and I'm buying a gallon of gas for $3.29? Okay. All this other half decent news we're hearing.
290s. Hey, Larry, 297 in Wisconsin, where I'm at now. 290 cents,
Really?
$2.90 a gallon.
Yeah, that's
Maybe worth the drive, Larry.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah,
You may see
it
me.
is. But anyway,
You may see me
sorry to interrupt
shortly.
you.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, right.
you know what, Larry? I think the answer to your question is in the details that we kind of talked about on Wednesday, but let's circle back to them here. The first one is it's housing. Housing's not getting cheaper. Prices of houses are going up.
Absolutely.
Landlords still feel emboldened to raise rents. And so the housing, which makes up 42% of the inflation number, is still high and inflating. And you, Brett, mentioned the second point this morning, groceries. Although the turkey dinner is cheaper, I mean, we've all seen the meme, right? Where they look and they're like, oh yeah, 1987, there's a full shopping cart, $200. And now, 2023, there's like 3 things in a shopping cart, $200. I mean, it's crazy. And
Yeah,
so
that's for sure.
in spite of the fact that there's some moderation in some areas over the last 12 months, food still pricey, and housing still pricey.
You hit it. You nailed it on the two things that I was going to follow up with. And I think, John, you'll probably agree with this. The thing that's keeping inflation at that sticky point of 3.2 to 3.5 is housing and food costs. That's what's doing it right now.
I'll tell you what, too, guys. One thing I've been watching that, you can't deny it, is that like 401k emergency withdrawals are up 300% over a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So people are going to get money at places they normally wouldn't, because it's just, and the credit cards aren't getting paid now. The credit cards are through the roof. The car payments are going late. That's all got to be factored into all this too. Even if inflation's down, what's
100%.
going on with that?
Yeah.
That's a direct opposite of what those numbers would say,
Yeah. People are still dipping into their credit cards, still dipping into their 401ks. I was going to visit this morning the John Hoffman Credit Union to withdraw a little bit of money, but we'll see. But yeah, no, you're right, John. I mean, credit card balances are up through the
roof. Yeah.
And like you said, people are starting to, and not even starting to, but continuing to dip into their 401ks, which is becoming a dinosaur. Let's face it, 401ks are becoming a dinosaur in the corporate world, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the stuff you got to look at, when you're, it's down. But then why are people struggling big time? Worse than a year ago.
John, we talked about this a half a second ago. So Cyber Monday, consumers are going to spend $13.7 billion Cyber Monday, and they spent over 10 billion on Black Friday, and they're all out there and moaning about what, inflation and everything else. But at the same time, we're spending 13.7 billion in one day this coming Monday. That's the prediction.
There's always people at the party, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Really.
I mean, this is my confusion with this whole thing. It's like we have all these good numbers in front of us. People are spending money like they have too much, but yet they're moaning about inflation, and their consumer sentiment is up a little bit in November, but still down for the little bit for the fourth month in a row. It's all this confluence of confusing facts and how consumers kind of bring all that together and think about
it. There's a lot of tricky information out there. You can't read anything by one, and that's why I have to sit here and I have to factor in everything, because me doing REO real estate, where's it at? What's coming down the pipe? What am I seeing? And I'm slightly getting busier. I'm getting more, or is that just a blip, or is it going to continue to get busier, or will it revert back and there won't be any again? You have to factor all this stuff in, and you get a lot of, let's just say, cheerleading information out there that sometimes doesn't help you read what's going on. You know?
So John, tell me about that. What are you seeing? Like, I mean, you say there's a lot of different things going on. What's your opinion on it? Because I'm fascinated by the REO market, in large part because we've been saying for a couple of years here, there are so many folks in the real estate market with so much equity. Why would you ever let your house go to foreclosure? Because you could just sell and get out. But it sounds like that's not entirely true, or at least not in your corner of the world.
Well, it's the problem with people have plenty of equity. I mean, I keep hearing that. People had plenty of equity in 08, even though a lot of them didn't. A lot of them did. But the problem is people, they don't, the people are always the last to know. Everything's got a lag to it, a huge lag.
Right.
So you guys still with me there? I just lost both of you.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is that, by the time people go, oh my gosh, maybe we should just sell and go, usually that everyone's coming up with that plan. So then you have 10,000 homes listed at once. And that's what happened back then, is everybody listed. Oh, we got a list. And then you had a million shorts. I mean, I'm not saying like that's what we're going to do, but that's what happens, is there's a gigantic lag to that. Plus, if people sold, where are they going to go now? They can't even afford the rents, So if anyone sells now, they're probably moving home,
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's just a messy, it's hard to explain, just because there's so much information, good and bad, that's out there. And you got a lot of cheerleaders out there that are like, oh, everything's, I've heard, things are going to start skyrocketing again. It's like, how? It's like the income levels aren't up anywhere near what this real estate and stuff is. And basically everyone's going to be poor and can't buy anything if they keep going up. So, I don't know. There's a fine line in there that's gonna break this thing, and I don't even know what that is really. But I feel, I can see it coming. I can see how the people aren't paying. People aren't paying this, that, and that's just all. They start with the credit cards. They split, and then they can't pay the car. They'll pay the car before the house because they need a car. And I'm starting to see that cascade the way it normally would. But it's a long lag for that to take, where you'll notice it in the system. You know what I mean? It's just, people won't, they don't all quit paying tonight.
Right.
It takes a while,
It's a slow
I'm
flag.
seeing more REO. My REO inventory is growing, albeit slowly, but that tells me that there's something going on. But again, it might be a blip, or it might be the start of something where we'll look out. We don't know at this point. We don't know.
Well, what I was going to say is, we talked on on Wednesday, and we mentioned that REO inventory, short sale inventory, the distressed market in general is starting to tick up a little bit, little by little by little. And a lot of that is the properties that were in moratorium, and Cook County just put another 3-month moratorium in because of all the flooding and all the FEMA disasters. They just put another moratorium in Cook County for another 3 months. So you're not going to see any foreclosures coming down the system in Cook County for the next 3 months either.
See, and that's my problem with the whole thing is they need to let this thing just be what it is. At some point, you got to let the system work itself out. You can't just keep going, oh, let's pause that. Let's pause that. Let's throw money at that. I mean, a lot of people just can't pay. They shouldn't own a house, period. Hate to say it, but it's true. But we got people in some of these that are in forbearance that have been in it for 2 years. And I mean, I've got some of these properties that they haven't paid in 5 years. Well, it's like, and to them, they're almost entitled to the house.
We're in a judicial foreclosure state.
Oh God, don't remind me.
If you go into foreclosure in Texas, you got like 10 minutes to get out of your house.
Right.
In Illinois, you could be in your house, like you said, for 5 years without making
3 to 4 years right now. Yeah, absolutely.
As it goes through the system.
Hey, Kane County Sheriff in May, I think there was 42 units at the Kane County auction, and now it's almost 100. So it's like, all right, more than doubled since May.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean,
that's I mean, those are true stats. You can go look them up, and it's that when you see the trends going north like that, there's something going on,
Yeah.
John, what's the demand from investors like for those foreclosures currently? Is it still kind of hot? I mean, are there corporations in there? Are the investors getting a chance to come to bat? Like, what's the market look like?
Yeah, the investors, all the corporate ones, they'll buy anything and everything they get their hands on.
Yeah.
A lot of those, though, the problem with a lot of those ones that are at the auction is that the banks have to pay they have to buy the whole thing back. They don't discount a lot of those because for the insurance, for them to get the PMI insurance, they have to buy it back for what's owed. And, most investors look at that and go, why would I pay that?
Right.
But that's basically what they have to do with those.
Yeah, well, they have to go through that process, then sell it under market in the secondary market through a guy like you, right? And then book their losses and go make the claim.
Correct, right. They do the claim, and then it just becomes an REO at that point, But yeah, the investors are hot and heavy. I mean, the corporate ones, all of them. But, one thing I see is a lot of those corporate investors, because I've got people that have kids. My son's in one of those big houses that corporations rent, and they don't take care of these properties either. They rent them to these guys. Oh yeah, they just run them to the guy, whoever's renting them, and if they leave it on you, bad old windows, old roofs, old kitchens. They don't. I mean, that's what.
Oh wait, I want to understand this. So these hedge funds that are buying these properties, one of which your son is renting out,
right?
They are not keeping up with the property preservation of those properties?
Totally. Yeah, they don't maintain these properties. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Because the market is in such high demand. That's why if we ever saw a major shift, okay, where all of a sudden we had a bunch of stuff come to the market. And I've heard a lot of these corporate owners are going to start selling this stuff because the rents are coming down slightly, albeit slightly. Rents are
coming down. Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting soft. They are. Maybe not necessarily around here, but and that's the way all these real estate trends work. Is it starts in the hottest areas, like in the South. Like in the South, a lot of these areas are struggling. They're down 10%. Right. Austin, some not Phoenix, like Austin, Tampa. There's just certain areas where it's starting.
Prices in Austin are insane. I have a couple clients
the whole thing
in Austin. They're crazy.
Idaho, I know some like Boise, a lot of that market's getting soft. But, the thing is that, if you ever saw a shift, we'd have so many houses put on the market that had so much deferred maintenance, it wouldn't even be funny. And people that are in forbearance, think about it like that too. They're in forbearance. They don't have any money. They're not taking care of their house either. So even though we're
if you can't make the monthly payment, you certainly don't have yourself $400 to fix a window situation or a roofing situation. or
Totally, right.
replace your HVAC system, right? You're like,
Right.
just patch it up and we'll figure it out down the road.
Right. And that's like these FHA loans where if you're behind, they'll take what you owe, put it on the back, and they'll give you a 40-year loan. I mean, that guy's not making payment. You know, he's okay, he gets a new payment. That may last a while, but in the end, he probably can't afford this house anyways. You know, and all the deferred maintenance you're going to encounter with that. By the time that hits the market, the house will be near a complete rehab. And
You know
that's what. What's
Go
that?
ahead.
No,
go
that's
ahead.
what most of these properties are. I mean, that's what, I appreciate the forbearance, and it saved a lot of people. Like, oh, okay, good. You know, that guy was able to get through the year and a half, whatever. Now he's back making payments. But a lot of these, they just can't afford them. And now the inflation's going to, on the other end, inflation is going to eat them alive too. So you've got a double-edged sword of you can barely afford the mortgage, and now the inflation's killing me.
Well, the good news is that about 90+% of the people that actually went into forbearance have somehow, one way or another, gotten through that. They've gotten through the forbearance. They have paid the forbearance back, and now you have the stragglers who are just still in tough situations in terms of forbearance. But the good news with that is, and I'm not sitting here just blowing sunshine up everyone's butt, but the good news with that is that most of them have come out of that forbearance period whole.
Yeah.
So that is something we could just, hold on to a little bit. Dylan, I want to ask you something because, like John was saying, how the distressed market is ticking up, not the hose full open and, you're getting 20 assignments a week, but like back in the day.
Sure.
But like with the REO foreclosure and distress market ticking up, we know that the mortgage app market has ticked up and was at its highest level in 5 weeks last week or this week, and is still going pretty strong because interest rates have held, especially through the short holiday. But what I'm curious is, are you seeing any trends with the types of mortgages or, how buyers are looking at all this now?
No trends. It's not, there's not enough time. In essence, a 1 week spike in rates or, a drop in rates, a move. Yes. In the global sense, it's moved people, but like we've talked about, Larry, the move to 7.25 has just made a few people like, oh, let's go get this done. I think it's just pulled forward some demand because we were at 8. And I don't think it's a changing market.
Like, are you seeing more FHA or VA than you are just conventional, or it's just
it's pretty
same
standard.
basic
It's
mix?
just
Dylan.
It feels very
Dylan,
standard.
it's like mine too. It's like you don't know if it's a blip or if it's a real change. That's the price.
I mean,
mine.
we'll know more in a month. If we have a busy December, then we can start to discuss the idea that it's a shift in sentiment and a shift in market. But we're sitting here on November 25th, and if you're going to ask me, hey, is it gangbusters now since the rates started shifting on the 12th? I don't know, man. There's not enough time.
Yeah. Me and John talked about this, just in terms of, how the foreclosure market is ticked up. And, we've talked about how the mortgage app market has ticked up a little bit, all this stuff. Good. But, John, we've had this conversation where you used to be able to kind of predict the real estate market and the ebb and flow of the market, right? We used to be able to, hey, spring market, kids go back to school market, holiday market, winter market.
Not anymore.
That's all out the window.
Out the window, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, no predictability of this whatsoever. Whatsoever. It's going to be a great. This last spring was a bust, a complete bust. It wasn't even spring. Dylan, you probably saw that too. I mean, it was
for sure.
You didn't know where this stuff was coming from.
No, we didn't know exactly. We didn't know where the
week
next move was coming from. So it's just it feels a little more kind of base stable now, but not great. Like I wouldn't call it a great market. I'd call it
No,
better than it
definitely
was.
not.
Yeah. All
Definitely
right. So
not.
listen, we brought John on because John and me have both been, John is still actively in the REO business. I did it for a long time, blah, blah, blah. So John, this is a special segment, Dylan, like we did with you last week. I think it was Wednesday. This is story time with John Hoffman,
God.
I love a good
REO
story.
broker. Now I know, John, you're going to hold back because you can't tell it all.
Oh, I could probably tell it all, but
We'd get kicked off the podcast. But
yeah, excuse me.
give us a little insight, maybe through one story or something memorable to you that's happened over the years with one of your transactions that will give people some insight into what it's like to be an REO agent.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was funny. I was thinking about that when you said, hey, have a story. And I'm like, I probably got about 3 of them. I'll tell you, probably one of the better ones that I can share with you. I had a house, this was probably back in 2010. So right in the crater of when everything was a big mess, And I had a house, probably about a 6-year-old house out in Newark. And it was on like 2 acres. And it was parcels of homes that were all like 2 acres apiece. Okay. So we get there. There's no siding. Okay, the house is already vacant. No siding. All the lights are gone. All the exterior lights. We get inside. The water's up over the. It had a full basement, unfinished. Water's over the first floor. Okay, so the basement's full of water. We get in there and everything was gone. The flooring, the cabinets, sinks, lights, everything. You name it. He took everything. Took the electrical panel. So we couldn't even get in there. Excuse me. We couldn't even get in there to do anything with this place. We had to go to the neighbor. We went to the neighbor to run a line so we could pump out the basement to get to the point where we could actually dry it out, install a panel so we could rebuild the house. I mean, and I had another one like that in Lyle, a condo that actually was. It was going to be a flip because I went, when you get a new assignment, you go through the MLS, see if it had any history. Well, I went through the history and it said beautiful condo, totally remodeled. So that was from 8 months earlier. Well, I get it as a foreclosure. We get in there, reopen, rekey the door, get in, stripped clean. Everything's gone. Every last bit of anything in there was gone. But that's probably the funniest thing. Or obviously the stories of them stealing all the copper piping.
I was going to say, we remember those days.
I had a ton of those back in,
remember
I had a ton of those back in like 2010, 2011.
John, we'd put brand new washer and dryers in. Fannie would go in and do their little rehab, put their little carpeting in, do their paint job, and all that, put brand new appliances in. And no kidding, 3 days after those appliances were in, Dylan, they were gone.
Yeah,
absolutely. Took that long?
Yeah, exactly. And in some instances, not only were they gone, but what, like John said, all of the copper piping gone.
Yeah,
gone.
But the one in Newark was the funniest one because I'd never seen a house. I mean, he took the subflooring, so we couldn't even walk in there because you'd fall into the, and wreck your crotch falling into the basement. You know what I mean? That's how screwy this place was. I mean, why? It's like, what do you want the subflooring for?
Yeah, really.
That's just kind of wow.
That's just being mean.
Yeah, it is. It was. A lot of them were like that. I've had ones like that where they wrote on the walls of the bedrooms, screw you bank. It's like, wow, okay, a little hostility in this house.
Seen a lot of those notes on walls, right?
Yeah, right. But yeah, that Newark one's probably the funniest one, just because I've never seen a house stripped so clean.
I sold one of my earliest REOs that I sold for Fannie was a property in Joliet, and in not a great part of Joliet. Okay. But this property, when I visited the property, here's how I got in. I took my finger and I went like this, and the front door literally just fell open. I walked in.
I've had a couple of those too.
There's holes in like the floor. You can see down into the basement, so I had to be really careful about that. And if you look up, there were holes in the roof, and there were no windows on the place. I put that property on the market. So this was early in my REO days. I put that property on the market in Joliet for $11,000. That property sold. Huh?
I remember those days.
Oh, yeah.
11,000. I did a few of those too, man. Won't see that for a while.
I put that property on the market for 11 days. For $11,000, and that thing sold in probably 3 days. And that's when I realized everything sells. There's only one thing that matters when you're selling a property, and it's not condition, it's not location, it's price. Your price has to match the location and condition. And if you do that, you will sell that house in a relatively short period of time. If you price it right, it doesn't even matter what condition it's in or where it's located. Someone's going to buy it.
Right. The math always maths, right?
Exactly.
Like at the end of the day,
totally.
there's no denying the math. And so, we talk a little bit about the last few years about how properties ran up in value, but you know what? Maybe the smart money was realizing, hey, if I could tie up mortgage money, even if I got to overpay a little bit at 2 and 3 or 4%, that's okay if rates go up, which they have. You're saying, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, the price grinds down to whatever I have to put in this house plus the purchase price. As long as that works, it works. Doesn't matter.
100%. I tell everybody that price is king, period. Yes, you want to put your best foot forward when you put your property on the market. You want it staged right. You want great media deliverables. You want to work with agents that know how to negotiate, know how to get you over the finish line. Same thing with mortgage brokers, attorneys, home inspectors, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you price it right, you are going to sell that house in a relatively short period of time. And the opposite of that is you could have the most beautiful house in the world in the best location on earth. And if you overprice it, you have a large paperweight on your hand because it's going to sit there and not sell.
Absolutely. As I like to say, Larry, if that house from pricing standpoint gets the stink on it, you're doomed.
You're done.
It doesn't matter.
You're done. I try and explain that to everybody. Don't you, John?
It's old in 3 weeks, man. Been on the market for 3 weeks. Your listing is now unseeable, really, because people don't. They're like, "What's wrong with that? Power lines?"
People are starting to, wonder. I had this other REO property, just to circle back for a second here. I had this other REO property all the way out in the boonies, man. And it was on a huge plot of land, like 13, 14 acres. The guy was still living there, but it was pretty much vacant. But he was still living there. It was kind of one of those situations, right?
Full of his stuff, you mean?
What's that?
Full of his stuff.
Yeah, well, kind of full of his stuff, full of his dog cages, which I'm going to get to in a minute. So I drive up. It's one of these places. Like I said, it's on about 13, 14 acres. I drive up to, I kind of pull into this driveway, which you could barely see off the road. And, I drive up the driveway. I'm winding through. I come to the house, and I'm sitting there like in the middle of the field of this huge 13-acre field with the house over here. So I get out of my, before I get out of my car, I'm checking around, just looking around just to make sure. Can you get out of your car? You're going to get attacked by a kangaroo or something. So I get out of my car and like we do, I walk around the house, take some pictures. I looked in the windows just to see what I was looking at and, what the deal was. So when I looked in the window, I see all these dog cages, right?
Oh,
and yeah, like big dog cages.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I didn't see any dogs. So now I'm thinking, well, maybe he already left. but I see the dog cages there. So I'm driving out. I did all my stuff. I did all my thing, drove out, saw the neighbor on the side. I said, and like we do, I asked him, I said, hey, can you give me any background on this house? What's up and what's going on with it? He goes, oh yeah, he's still living there with his 6 German Shepherds. He goes, did you get out of your car? I said, yeah, we get out of our car just to, check the condition of the property and stuff. He goes, holy, I'm not going to say it, but holy, you know what? He has the 6 largest German Shepherd dogs I've ever seen in my life, and they're not nice dogs. You are really, really lucky that those dogs were not around. They're probably roaming the fields right now. So that was like a light bulb went off in my head.
That's
like,
a wake up call.
You gotta kind of really be careful about, these things. Am I right? You really do.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you've had the ones too where you get there's no power and you walk in and it's vacant. You go to the basement and all of a sudden you're standing in a foot of water because you didn't see it.
Yeah, and you got to be careful.
Always a good time.
Flashlights and
always a good time.
Yeah, I mean we can go on and on with these things.
Oh yeah, it's just
the flooding,
crazy,
the angry tenants, the angry homeowners, and I felt bad for all of them.
It always amazes me how everybody's angry when it's like, especially, everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, even the tenants, like the notices are coming to the property. They send them to wherever the landlord is and where the tenant is. And then the owners, they know they haven't made the payments. Like, why are we mad? This is this is just what happens next.
Well,
you feel like you feel like the repo man. You really do. I mean, are they going to shoot at me?
Yeah.
Are they, is this going to be a hitch and tow and go? Yeah. It's like,
what?
Crazy, man. Crazy.
The one thing I always did when I visited these REOs, and I know you probably do this too, is you have to come to them as your friend, as their friend. You're not, I tell all of them, I'm not here to take your house. No one's coming to knock on your door and kick you out. That's not how this works here. As a matter of fact, don't do a thing until you see me post this thing on your door that says, and what does it say, John?
Yeah. Well, cash for keys.
It's the cash for keys notice. So until I put this on your door, this is not getting serious. Once I put this on your door, you need to call me. Until then, really, unless you plan on moving out sooner, just do your thing, whatever. If you do move out, let me know. But once I put that cash for keys notice on your door, you need to call me, because then you have a specific amount of time before the sheriff comes and asks you politely to put your stuff on the curb.
Hey, Dylan, keep in mind that's after 4 or 5 years of no payments. Now we're going to give you money to leave.
Right.
And you're
mad at me.
What's that?
And you're mad at me.
Right. And they're still mad at you.
You're angry.
Right.
Yeah. If you go at them as their friend, Dylan, honestly, if you approach people like, you're trying to help them, like with what we all do, right? If you just look at everybody as a commission instead of how can I help you, regardless of, how much I'm going to make or not make, then you're going down a bad rabbit hole. But with this as well, if you come to them as your friend and you're trying to help them get through this difficult situation, it really does in the end work out. It does, one way or the other, it works out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, the people that are struggling. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the people that are struggling, once they realize you're not there to, you're not the, what it is? It's them figuring out you're not the owner. I'm not the new owner. They always think you're the new owner.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm not. I just represent the new owner, and I'm here to help. Once they figure that out, most of them will. You can get through to them.
Yeah, it's just a process, and it's a scary process for people that are going through it. It really is.
Definitely.
And you got to kind of take that into account when you're doing that business, because it's completely different than retail real estate. Right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a completely different animal, you know. And
whole
Larry,
different.
you've heard agents say it. They're like, "Oh, I want to get into that like you do it." It's like, yeah, you couldn't handle it, pal. Trust me. You
Oh,
wouldn't.
listen,
You don't want to do what we're doing.
have
You know.
500 properties in your inventory. It's like herding cats. It really is. It's
Yeah,
insane.
it is, man.
Hey, before we
It is.
wrap it up, I want to do two things. First of all, Dylan, if people want to get in touch with you, if they need a pre-approval, if they need a second opinion, if they just want to talk because they're lonely, how do they get in touch with you?
You can call or text me anytime at 630-708-7088.
Okay. And John, John doesn't just do REOs. John does typical retail real estate as well. He's the broker owner at Y Rent Real Estate. So he has other agents there as well. John, if people want to get in touch with you at Y Rent, how are they doing that?
Excuse me, 630-601-1300. That's Y Rent Real Estate. We're in Batavia, downtown Batavia. Pretty much King County, handle all that. You got questions about foreclosures, whatever. Just want to chat, give us a call.
Give John a call. Hey, listen, we're not done with these REO stories. We got a lot more of these things to go. Believe me.
Plenty out there.
Crazy. All right, you guys, thanks for joining us today. Have an awesome weekend. Dylan, I will see you on Wednesday.
Back at it Wednesday, man.
And John, I'll talk to you, of course, during the week, and we'll see you here again here soon.
See you, Dylan. See you, Larry.
Right,
take
John,
care,
good
boys.
seeing you. Thanks, Larry.
All right, I'll see you guys.
You got it.
All right, you guys, we are going to wrap this up now. And before we do, I just want to get into a couple of things real quick. So first of all, if you would like a copy of my new free ebook, which is called The Top 10s of Real Estate. And what it is really is it's 32 top 10 lists, real estate lists that are proven to help you maximize your profit, whether you're buying, selling, or investing. For instance, chapter 32 is going to give you some insight into exactly how investors look at properties. What is that 70% rule? Some go 75%, but what is that 70% rule and how does that all work? And how does an investor look at a property, evaluate it, and decide whether this is a good investment or not? Also, the other thing I want to do is I wanted to tell you that this coming Wednesday, we have a really special guest on, Margaret Gehr. And Margaret is the founder and owner of Chicagoland Home Staging. Now, what we're going to do is a case study, and the case study is titled Staging 831 Diane. Now, you'll see in the little ticker at the bottom, 831 Diane is an 11,000 square foot home in Naperville that was listed by my associate, my team member over at EXP, Michael Lafito, of the 11,000 square foot home, which Margaret staged. The house is on the market and under contract. It's on the market for $2.895 million, 11,000 square feet. We're going to show you through some 360 videos that I took what it looked like before it was staged, what it looked like after it was staged, and what the outcome was once it was staged. So this is going to be really cool because we're going to kind of peel back the onion and show you exactly why staging is so important, why it's worth it. You have one shot to put your best foot forward when you first come on the market. You have one shot to price your home correctly when it first comes on the market. Do not miss that red carpet moment of yours. So with that, you guys, I just want to say thank you for joining us today, November 25th, for the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. Remember to pick it up again on Wednesday with us at 11 o'clock. We'll be live with Margaret Gehr of Chicagoland Home Staging, and we're going to take a look at an amazing 11,000 square foot property and why staging it was the right thing to do and how we got it sold. Okay, you guys, have an awesome weekend, and we will talk to you soon.